Let's talk to Simon in Orpington. Hi, Simon.
Hi, Christo. How are you doing?
Fine, thank you. You called about Christmas TV. You're so excited, didn't you?
Yes, indeed.
Did you really?
About Nish, then. Christo, are you a fan of free speech?
Am I a fan of free speech? Well, yes, I am a fan of free speech. If it is within certain boundaries. So I think maybe that's a contradiction. For instance, free speech would have to be within the law. We don't live in a society of full free speech. I couldn't sit on this radio station and suggest that we all go and attack gay people, because that would be an abuse of free speech.
Well, that's that's a different thing, isn't it? That's
well, no, because that's stopping free speech.
Yes, absolutely, but that's incitement to violence,
which would mean we don't have full free speech in this country.
Well, absolutely, that's it. But where you're inciting violence, that's where your privilege of our right to free speech stops. But I thought it was interesting, because I thought earlier in the show you sounded like a champion for free speech. But then you just listening, you seem to be upset about Tim Farron and his personal beliefs about his personal religion, which he was not imposing on anybody else.
Well, I believe, no, because if you would like me to clarify, which I'm more than happy to do so, there are certain, which goes back to the incitement to violence situation.
That's not incitement to violence. Having a personal belief.
I didn't say it was. Okay. But there are certain protected people within the eyes of the law. Your race, your gender or identified gender, your sexuality, they are protected within the law. They are unchangeable aspects of your personality. So therefore, we live in a society, quite rightly, where if your free speech is exercised to criticise those particular aspects of someone's life that is unchangeable and unchoosable, then fine, quite understandably, they are torn apart.
That Tim Farron was crossing over and breaking the law then? What was he arrested for?
No, I didn't say that he was breaking the law. What I was saying was that he was criticising. No, I was trying to explain to you the concept of a protected characteristic, Simon, in the eyes of the law. Now, I personally believe if you are going to criticise someone's race or their sexuality, well, then that is when your free speech should somewhat be curtailed.
No, he wasn't criticising.
Yes, he was.
What he was saying was, look,
he was saying that he believes that sex between two people who are gay was sinful.
Sure, but Christo, people hold personal religious beliefs that they don't impose on anybody. Now, I'll give an example.
Well, was he not imposing it by anyone by saying it? Of course he was imposing
someone asked him Christo, someone asked him a question. What's he meant to say? Here's a personal belief I have, but I'm not going to answer it. I mean, there's lots of things in religion. I'm going to give an example. I used to work with a guy who was a Jehovah's Witness. Mm-hmm. Now, according to his beliefs, and I knew it because a lovely guy, great guy, fantastic guy to work with. But anyway, he had beliefs about heaven and hell, and according to him, I wouldn't be admitted to one of those places. Now, that was a personal belief that he held. He didn't treat me in any or anybody else.
And why did he believe you were going to hell?
Well, because I wasn't a Jehovah's Witness.
And what was it that you were doing that would make him think you were going to hell?
Oh, Chris, a long time ago, I don't remember the whole conversation about his religion, but what I'm saying is that's quite, that is a personal belief.
It is, but the belief he had...
He wasn't imposing it on anybody else. Tim Farron was asked a question, and he was just saying about his personal beliefs. Now, let's take...
Would you like me to explain to you the difference between that? Would you like me to explain to you the difference between those two things, right?
But you used the law the last time, and that doesn't work.
No, I used the law in order to describe to you the 2010 Equalities Act, which actually brings in the protected characteristics of certain people. Now, I'm more than happy to explain to you where your Jehovah's Witness example is wrong.
Okay, but do you accept that Tim Farron wasn't treating anybody differently? Tim Farron, he is a liberal. There's no doubt about that. Now, I don't actually agree with Tim Farron's views on many, many things, probably at all, much, but he's definitely, I think he's true to his beliefs, and I think he treats people absolutely
Whilst
equally.
secretly thinking that we're sinners.
I really believe he truly believes.
Now, okay, well, I'll explain to you why it's different to your Jehovah's Witness example, because I would understand why someone who isn't perhaps of a protected characteristic wouldn't understand.
Hang on, I'm sorry, have you asked about my character?
No, I could only presume because of the fact that you needed explaining to you.
You're presuming, Christo.
Well, because you need explaining to you. Because you need explaining to you. So, your Jehovah's Witness example, and I accept what you're saying about what your colleague or whatever it was used to say to you, that is your choice to not be a Jehovah's Witness. Now, you could make a different choice. You could say one day, you know what, I'm going to agree with what he said. I don't want to go to hell, so I'm going to make a different choice and I'm going to become a Jehovah's Witness, because that is something inherent within you that you can choose. Whereas the difference with what Tim Farron said about gay sex being sinful and thereby the implication of homophobia is that I can't wake up, or people like me, one morning and say, gosh, what Tim Farron has said about me going to hell, I'm going to change my mind and not be gay today. So do you see the difference? It's the same way.
I think you have a misunderstanding of the law, Christo, because you tried that argument when there was the cake that was being baked in Northern Ireland. You tried that, but the law didn't actually agree with you on that one.
Well, that doesn't necessarily mean I always have to agree with the law. Who said I had to agree with the law? I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a judge.
No, of course, absolutely. You don't have to.
I'm not a member of parliament that makes laws.
No, but you're using that line as...
No, I was using the law to try and explain...
Who actually has that line?
No, I was using the law to try and explain to you the concept of a protected characteristic, and the reason that I believe that the Supreme...
Tim Farron wasn't imposing his view on anybody else.
No, but he was saying a part of someone else's protected characteristic which is unchangeable was something he found sinful. Now, I can't change, or someone who is from the LGBT community. It would be the same way. It would be the same way.
If you subscribe to that religion, it's irrelevant anyway. It's like, as I say, it's like saying to somebody...
no, but it's still homophobic.
It's like a Muslim saying to me, Simon, if you don't pray 5 times a day to Allah, that's sinful before God.
No, because you... Okay, Simon, I forgive you for not understanding the previous example I gave, which shows you didn't.
No, Christo, I listened to your example and heard it and understood it. I'm just saying...
Well, you didn't, because you just used a religion versus a religion example again, in the same way as your Jehovah's Witness versus you example. And actually, that's shown you don't understand the example I gave, so I'll try it again.
Do you accept that Tim Farron wasn't imposing a personal religious belief on anybody else?
I'm accepting that Tim Farron was homophobic in what he was saying by expressing the fact that he believed that gay sex is sinful.
The question I asked you don't want to answer then?
Well, I'm sorry, if someone was in the public eye and said, actually, I believe that sex between a black person and a white person is sinful, would you need that view imposed on someone else for you to be able to say that that person's racist?
Well, that's entirely different.
No, it's a protected characteristic in the eyes of the law, Simon. It's a protected characteristic in the eyes of the law.
What Tim Farron was saying was he was talking from a Christian perspective. So he was saying, look, here is my belief that this isn't the way that actually Christians should live. That's what he was saying. He was talking about people who subscribe.
Which is homophobic.
Describe religion. Of course, it's not homophobic.
Of course it's homophobic.
Okay,
you're describing someone's inherent sexuality as sinful. That's homophobic, Simon.
Okay, Chris, if you think that, absolutely fine. Nobody else seems to agree with you. If you believe that, I suggest you ring the police right now and say there's been a hate crime. I think what you'll find is that actually you're standing on your own and you'll be wasting police time. But if you believe it's homophobic, Christo, stand by your belief.
Well, I do believe it's homophobic. I believe. And how long did he last, Simon? How long did he last in the Liberal Democrats with those sorts of views?
Christo, I don't think he was very good at all. But look, hang on a moment, Christo.
So you are excusing homophobic statements being made, Simon, because you don't feel that they're inflicted enough on other people. You're excusing homophobic statements.
Hang on, Christo. You're saying the law's been broken, yet you won't ring the police about it.
I'm saying that he's made a homophobic statement by saying that gay sex is wrong. That is homophobic.
Well, you're saying that they're a protected characteristic, in which case you were saying it's
do you know what? Maybe that's not a bad idea. Maybe that is not a bad idea. Do you know what? We should look that up as to whether he has actually broken the law with that.
I don't think you can have a hate crime from a
try it because the people tried it with the cake in Northern Ireland.
Yeah.
They tried it, and the law ruled in the name of the bakers. So.
Well, in fairness, it was because of the fact that the law
has
ruled...
been set with the law, and they'll fall back on that.
Well, no, actually, again, I forgive you for being wrong on this, but they actually didn't rule that discrimination was happening towards the people who were purchasing the cake. They believed that it was the message that was being discriminated against. However, if you'd like to refer to a different case of this, let's remember the gay B&B situation, where the B&B owners turned away the gay couple.
Well,
now, that was direct discrimination against an actual person,
right.
And that's different to the gay cake row.
Christo, we are in absolute agreement on that. I can't remember.
Perhaps that would have been a better example for you to use rather than discrimination against a piece of sponge.
No, because I'm making the point that
certain homophobia is okay, but other homophobia isn't.
Right. So let's just complete this now. I'm making the point that the people who owned the B&B, they treated a couple differently, and they shouldn't have done that. Tim Farron, and that's why they were wrong in the eyes of the law.
In the same way that Tim Farron thinks a straight couple are not sinful and a gay couple are, therefore having a different opinion of the gay couple.
Okay, so you want to legislate against people's thoughts now. Is that not a bit frightening? Of course you can legislate against actions, and Tim Farron would agree with you on that, but now you want to actually legislate against thoughts. That's quite
I'd rather people didn't actually have the thoughts, but yes, if it stops people making vile and homophobic statements...
wouldn't it be a perfect world if everybody believed the same way you do?
What, by not being homophobic, racist or sexist?
For holding personal religious beliefs.
By not being homophobic, sexist or racist. Yes, I would. Yes, Simon, I would very much like the world to have that view as mine.
If we just go down the route of you just quite homophobic and everything, we're not really going to get anywhere.
I would very much like the world to have the same view as mine, and that is one that is not homophobic, not sexist, and not racist. Yes, Simon, I think you've absolutely hit the nail on the head. I don't think that's unreasonable, is it? Ash, I don't actually...
449 at Talk Radio.
This is Talk Radio.
We've got something to tell you about the finance provider.
Stuff Christmas. You can reserve a places.org.uk to
travel.
London.
You're one of them. 4 stars says